What I wish I knew better about the leadership balance. Coming up here on the Better Sundays podcast at Reachkeep.com. Welcome to the Better Sundays podcast. Focused, practical, and usable advice for church leaders looking to reach new young families and impact their community. Well, howdy. This is Mike Holmes here. I am doing a little extra work on the side. I think all of us have done some bivocational things as pastors. I'm here working on the irrigation at our local hospital. We have a couple of the administrators that are on in our church, and through that connection and a few others, I've got the job here, and we're just kind of helping them fix their sprinklers and stuff. This is kind of look at it from the back of things. Now, whenever I come to the hospital here, though, we do a lot of work in the back by the emergency rooms. There's one of their ambulances, and it always makes me think of something that really applies to church leadership. And I want to talk to you about that balance. You know, when someone is first starting out in the ministry, there is this delicate balance of feeding the flock of God and leading the flock of God. And we need to do both. There is no doubt. We have to lead the sheep. We have to move them to different places. You know, if I have experience as a shepherd, spent a lot of time raising sheep. There's all sorts of things you do in addition to just feeding them. And so that's a very important thing. And there has to be a balance between the two. And here at the hospital is something that kind of reminds me of that. And I wanted to kind of talk with you about it. First of all, let's just talk about the leading, feeding thing. In our world, it would be the idea of you would be preaching the Word of God, and you would then also be doing the leading of the church, which would be pastoring the church and administrative type of things. There's just a variety of things that go on that have to do with leading the flock of God. And sometimes those two can be very different. You know, feeding is a very objective kind of a thing. In other words, we preach, we have a starting time and ending time. We pretty much know the content we're going to go through. I'm not saying it's easy, because you got to do a lot of hard work to get there. But it's you kind of know what's going on. People sit, you talk, you know, they listen, that type of thing. When it gets to leading, though, it is often much more subjective, because you don't really know what exactly you're getting into. You might have a meeting coming up with somebody at your church. You might have some Sunday school teachers you're training, and find out that they have just an amazing bunch of problems that you had no idea anything about, you know, and suddenly you're answering questions and you're kind of going down a different direction. All the different aspects of leading can really be sort of hard to know exactly what's going on. That's what I mean by subjective. Another thing is that when we are feeding the flock of God, we have seen other people do that. In other words, most of us have seen thousands of hours of preaching, and we've seen really good stuff, and we know good illustrations and good closings, and, you know, all the good tying together, the alliterations and all the good stuff. But we rarely see the leadership that goes on in a local church, because many times it's done on the Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. It's done in a boardroom. It's done in a counseling session. It's done at a planning table. And so we don't get to know that much about the whole concept of leading. In other words, we have not learned a lot about leading, and thus we tend to gravitate towards the feeding. We move towards the things that seem to be easier. In fact, preaching is relatively risk-free. I mean, you stand up there, you kind of do your thing, you're pretty much going to know you're going to make it through. It can be frightening, it can be, anxiety and all that, believe me, I know. But you kind of know what's going on. Where leading has all sorts of risk involved, because you don't really know where those deacons, what they're thinking, or where those Sunday school teachers are doing, or where you need to head. And that brings me to this whole concept of a hospital. We have a hospital here, and in the hospital they have surgeries that they schedule, and they have a variety of different, doctors' offices there, and they schedule different things. And those are more like the idea of the feeding. In other words, there's a scheduled time. They know they're going to do it. I'm standing right here in front of something, though, that really illustrates this. And this is our disaster recovery unit that goes out when there are giant disasters. And actually, we have those out here. We have these interstate closures and these massive pileups. And this goes on the road and goes out there, as well as kind of a motorhome that is set up with medical unit stuff that goes out and takes care of things. These people have no idea what they're getting into. This is more like leading. And there's a difference between a doctor that runs a scheduled thing, and he's got someone at 9 o'clock and someone at 9:30 and someone at 10. And the difference there between an EMS worker that sits in the little building, and our little end of it where it is, well, you probably can't see it, but there's some ambulance bays down there, and they are sitting in there right now. They do have a couple customers, because I was out front working on a sprinkler a few minutes ago, and I saw a few cars there, so someone's in the ER. But one of the things we find out as we work around here during the summer, spend a few hours here, and it'll touch your heart. All of a sudden, doors pop up, ambulances go whipping out, lights are on, and you know someone's in trouble. And you know that those emergency workers don't know exactly what's going on. They are going into a more difficult situation. Now, this brings me to just the important illustration here, is that as a feeder, we have had a lot of examples and a lot of training. As a leader, we have not had near the amount of training or the examples. There's no way that we could say we've seen thousands and thousands of hours of leadership, local church leadership, but we have seen thousands and thousands of hours of feeding and the preaching side of it. So therein is a situation. And where this surfaces is if you are a new church, or you're like a church plant, you're revitalizing a church, or you're working in you've kind of hit the wall. These things start to kind of pop up and start to kind of show their head, because we tend to be, as all humans, we're this way, we are risk adverse. We don't necessarily want to go into things that are harder to do. We'd rather do the things that are easier to do. And so thus sometimes we try to solve all our problems with just preaching. And I've heard many guys, with good intentions say, well, your church has a problem, you just need to preach your way through. It's like, well, it's probably going to take some more leading. It might take some listening. It might take some meetings. It might take some innovation and some calendar work and some things that are not during the preaching time, the things that are, the Monday, Tuesday nights, and rather than the midweek services and the Sunday mornings and Sunday nights. It's going to take some leadership that's going to happen there. And what we often find is when someone runs up against the wall, that they don't really have the leadership capacity, or they don't have the ideas, or they don't have the innovation. And that's where at Reachkeep.com we fill the gap. Okay, we spend dozens and dozens of hours on the phone every week talking to pastors that are asking questions about, ministry teams, how to get ministry teams going, how to do security systems, all sorts of different things, who to vote for. Okay, people calling you and asking you questions, just along those lines. There's all sorts of areas that you have to navigate. Now, I don't have experience on who should vote for in your community, but you're going to get those questions. So how are you going to have that discussion with people about voting? Where are you going to have those things? And we have all sorts of recommendations that we can help you with, where we have taken churches and helped them through the Reachkeep Academy, through the training, and help them to work on their Sunday school, to work on their Bible study groups, to work on their evangelism stuff that they do, all the promotion, we call it the influence funnel, how you're going to influence your community, how you're going to reach out to your community. All of that kind of stuff is what the Reachkeep Academy is all about. And we are here to help churches in the leadership areas where they are missing out. A guy called the other day, was interested in planning a church, and he was trying to get some of his core values kind of figured out, and kind of know exactly what's going on with his values. And that's an important thing. So we talk about that. We talk about how to make sure you get the people on the same page that you're on. And so we are here to help you in that gap. Now, I can help you with sermon illustrations, and I can help you with preaching too. In fact, we're doing a whole podcast series coming up here on preaching and presentations and that type of stuff. We've got a lot of good things along sermon engagement, very important stuff. But see, that gets more into leadership kind of stuff. How are you going to get people to take action after the sermon that they have heard? It is more than just, preaching and presenting and expositing the scriptures. And I'm for all that. Okay, we do all that stuff, but we have to do the leading as well as the feeding. And sometimes we're a little hesitant. We're a little risk adverse, and we stay away from some of those things. And that's really where we step in, and we're here to help. Okay, experienced pastor, been in the ministry pretty much all my life, here to help you out. So if you're interested in some help from Reachkeep.com, the best place to go is to, well, you can go to just Reachkeep.com. That's a great spot. But we have several free resources, and it talks about our coaching programs and all that right there. But we also have a monthly membership, and it's called the Reachkeep Academy, and is where we spend time with you, and we sit down with you, and we don't sit, we got to do it by Zoom, but we talk to you about your church, we talk to you about your scenario. We have monthly calls where you're able to do a kind of a Q&A, send in your questions, we're able to answer some of those things. We have all sorts of video training to help you in the specific areas that you have, because you are like in one of those machines right there. You are working with disasters, and I know what it's like. Every day is an exciting day in a local church. You never know what the phone call is going to be about, and that takes a lot of leadership, and we're here to help you develop your leadership. So if you go to reachkeep.com/academy, that will get you directly to the page that talks all about that, and you can find our product and how it all works. So we'd love to have you be involved. We are here for you. Happen to be in beautiful Wyoming, and the sun is kind of going down pretty out there. So here's the interesting management thing. We had like about 12 cases of water, or pallets of water donated to our hospital, and nobody knew what to do with them, so they just set them in a parking lot, let them fall over. Okay, leadership issues. Okay, they were out of bounds. They didn't know what to do with that, so we just got a big pile of stuff sitting around. So anyway, hey, God bless you. It is good to talk to you. These are things that I wish I knew. I wish I knew more about the balance between leading and feeding, and I've learned a lot of that over the years, and here to help you out. So, and let's take a peek. Oh, I can't believe it. You get to actually see it in action, not the ambulance. I know you would love to see that. Look at there's my sprinklers. Yay, they're working, and the grass is green. This place was a disaster when we got here. We're working on it. So anyway, love you guys out there. God bless. Go to reachkeep.com/academy, and we'll get you going the right direction. Take care.